Hello, everybody. Okay, my name's Clay. That's Clay with a J, and this is my channel. We're talking about all kinds of different things, and the point of all of this is to really figure out what self is, what is the purpose of life, etc. Very big concepts, but today, what I'm really trying to get at is more along the lines of starting the conversation of what is self. And to go there, I'm going to go into parts. Internal Family Systems by Dr. Dick Schwartz, and using that as a framework as well as several metaphors. Before we go into that, though, I'll give you a summary of what we've already gone over. We've gone over what emotions are. These are our biological essence, the body, the setting or the environment that we're in, and the mind's concept of what these two things mean together. That is what an emotion is. All three of those kind of combined into one, and they become habitual, perpetual reactions. These emotions are why do we have them? They are essentially fast reactions and tools to deal with the world, deal with reality. So they give us energy for some sort of behavior, and they communicate to both self and to others. We touched on why it is difficult to go against these emotions or control these emotions with the free energy principle. And changing these expectations could be very useful, but it risks going and making our expectations even more wrong, and our brain's very efficient. It tends towards I call it the lazy brain. It doesn't want to change. But it also goes into the free energy principle, defines like, why do we even have expectations in the first place? It would prefer to have expectations met. It's a low, like a neuronal, very like single neurons idea. They don't have their own ideas, but the tendency towards this system would be it wants to be able to predict. And if it can already predict, it reduces the amount of free energy around. And if the free energy is there, that's very uncomfortable. That's the thing that it doesn't want, the pain that it doesn't want, the bad, I guess. And so it tries to have these expectations. But once you have these expectations going on, there's a calculus that can happen. So going towards more and more accurate expectations, but also the world is huge. There's no way that the brain can encapsulate everything that might actually go on. And there's a balance between better and better expectations, risking expectations that are actually going to be so wrong, the changing of self, and so it wants to kind of have this balance, and it's not going to be at a perfection because that's impossible. We also talked about, and then changing our expectations feels bad. This kind of goes into that. This is breaking a habit is not easy. This kind of fundamentally says why. It's like it's not comfortable. It feels bad to do that, and this is kind of where that is coming from. We talked about the brain's efficiency, tendency towards the expectations, tendency towards being what I call lazy brains, the tendency towards control, tendency towards the necessity of ego, like the self-centeredness of this is how the world works, because we have to. I can only look at the world through my own eyes, my own senses, and also through my own concepts. I've got this set of concepts and expectations about the world. That's how I have to view the world, is through those. I can't view the world through your eyes or your expectations. We can try, but fundamentally, we can't. This is why the ego is there, for better or worse. Sometimes the ego is fine, sometimes it's bad, but egocentrism and all that. We also talked about how the human mind is social by nature. I mean, we're just built to be social creatures. And through that, we organize ourselves into hierarchies. If you think about hierarchies as an offshoot of we're social and we really want efficiency and control. We don't want bad, we do want good, and we're social creatures. Well, therefore, I want to be higher on the totem pole, because up there, at a higher hierarchy, there'll be less bad happening, and I'll have more control, more perceived control. So that goes towards the tendency of that. And we also talked about what the brain can do in any given situation. This would be change. The mind can change its own expectations to better fit reality. It can do that. It's very uncomfortable. It goes against some of the free energy stuff and the tendency, and it risks having worse stuff, but it can change its own expectations, although it's lazy and there's resistance. It can change reality to better fit its own expectations. This is one of the ones the brain really likes. That's not my fault. It's your fault. You did this. You made me mad, and you should apologize. Oh, really get into some psychological work through that one. Or the mind can ignore the discrepancy. It expects this, gets some negative here, the world's this, and it's got some whatever going on there. I'm just going to ignore it. Just not going to do anything with it. Let's go into using all of those things as our foundation, as well as this. We'll do one or two more foundational classes, and then we'll really get into the interesting stuff. But what is self? I'm going to give you several metaphors about this, and they're all going to be using parts in various ways. So self is like the driver of a bus. This is from ACT, Acceptance Commitment Therapy. So if you're the driver of a bus, you have all these passengers, and all these passengers are trying to get to whatever they want to do. And they're going to have their own expectations and ideas about what to do in various scenarios. Hey, if we see this, turn right, and we see that, turn left. We see this, go forward. Stop the bus. Then we have the internal passengers that are going to be like, no, hey, I know these guys are really annoying. You've been driving in circles because you keep listening to this guy saying turn right. Let me handle them. These are the managers. They're going to manage the other passengers, and then, but they will also have a tendency. They'll have their own request. You just, two lights up here, turn left, or, we're going to this shady area over here. I got to do a deal. Don't worry about it, kind of thing. You can look at them in any way you want. These are just metaphors. These are ideas that point at a larger concept. That's what these metaphors are for. I really like this one, the bus, because it shows the self is the one actually driving, and all the passengers are the ways in which you move and interact with the world. But you can't tell which one's right, which one's wrong, which one's bad, which one's good without a direction. So it kind of highlights the necessity for a purpose, for a point of life, for, I'll call them core values, or values, just keeping with the ACT metaphor here. So I'm kind of combining IFS and ACT would be, you have all these parts, they're going to be used to interact with the real world, and then you have the self that's going to have to use these parts to get to some sort of direction. So that's the bus. We've got the orchestra. I really like this one. The self is the conductor. This one's really useful because the conductor, you don't actually hear. The conductor doesn't actually do anything. They can't actually directly. If you're just listening to a piece of orchestra, piece of music, you can't hear the conductor. You can only hear the influence by various musicians or groups of musicians in like the strings or whatever, doing whatever they're doing. So it's got the self as this silent soul that's influencing how to interact with the real world, or create a cacophony. And like you have like over here, and then the brass starts going and they're playing a totally different song or whatever. That's more along the lines of what really happens. It's like each section is kind of doing their own thing, and the conductor is trying to navigate the real world. And it can be the conductor just lets stuff go, because that's what's going to happen with the brain. It's just going to do whatever it's going to do, and the conductor is the thing that points the flashlight of attention at different sections. No, we're focusing on strings. Well, what about over here? Nope, focusing on strings today, right now. That's what we're doing. That's the useful part, for better or for worse. So the orchestra is very useful at getting that concept of what the self is. It's not really the driver, it's the silent one that's going to be conducting all these other things, and you can't hear this person. So that's that one. The chessboard is another metaphor. So you've got this giant chessboard going out. We've got red pieces, green pieces, and we'll call the red pieces all the the experiences, the sensations, the memories you don't like. We've got the green pieces trying to control the red pieces, the positive things. I really like this, I really like that, and the strategies to control each other, to win the game. You can really get into this with, I've got this almost won, I've got this piece moved over here, I've almost got the red king in checkmate, and you can finally control everything, and you're about to win. You look back down at the board, and the pieces have moved. There was a cheat, and this pulls you back into more anger and frustration, which means red's winning again, right? And we're in those emotions that we don't want, and you just perpetually kind of control, and the expectation that you can control and get into this internal argument or this fight, these power dynamics. The chessboard really blows the power dynamics away because it's a perpetual thing. It's impossible to control everything. Who is self in the chessboard metaphor? The green king? Is it the red? Is it the knight? Whichever one you like. The self is the chess board itself. All of this is happening on the self. All of these parts are on the chessboard. We can look at them all, and looking at the chessboard as self allows us to disconnect, diffuse from each of these pieces, each of these parts. And that's why I really like the chessboard metaphor. And it's like that strategy of trying to control and win this game that can be all encompassing. You look at people who are really getting into games, really getting into football, like, and all these things. And it's like, that's cool, but the metaphor really works for self and parts. It really gets into the drive and the wanting to win this game. And that's why I really like the chessboard metaphor. Another metaphor, and this one I really like, just for myself, and you guys might like these or not, but this one is the raft. So imagine the self is, you're in the middle of the ocean, just there, and the raft would be the habitual parts that you build to keep yourself afloat. That's the raft itself. You have this log or this beam, and you tie them together, and all of a sudden you've got a way of dealing with interactions in the world. And these are aggregate, and you still go from like a single log to a full ship that you can have potentially. It's very effective at navigating the seas. But I'm hungry. How do I deal with these sensations that I don't like? And you can learn how to cry as a baby. I mean, this is like, raft is like a baby and goes all the way up to whatever else we can build. And I like this one a lot because it's an individual beam or log can break in different situations, and we can recognize two direct ways of fixing that. I'm going to avoid those reefs. Okay, then you're never going to get to that island, but you're also going to avoid that pain because that's just repeated. Every time you go there, you hit this reef, therefore the island's bad, the reef's bad. That's the thing I want to avoid. Or you can recognize, wait a minute, it's this part, this log, that same one that breaks every time I go towards this reef. Maybe I need to change the expectation. This kind of targets some of our own expectations or our discomforts, and it allows us to move through them conceptually rather than, bad feelings, bad, never go there. That's what the brain generally will do. Anyway, so we've got the logs, and that's fantastic. The tools in which we use to survive the world, but it's also got a mast or rowers, oars, whatever. These are also parts and passengers. So we've got like the foundational ones and keep us afloat, keep us alive. We've got the ones that propel us through the world, the directions we can go, and it's got the rudder and the compass for the individual direction. We've got the helmsman or the captain or whoever could be the self. In this one, the one is actually going to guide us and tell the rudder where to go, tell the sails which, how unfurled they're going to be. I'm not really nautical, but, and then, can help risk or repair or do whatever with the ship and move forward through life that way. So I like that one. I'm Danish. There's Vikings in my ancestry. I kind of my parts really like that one. So the whole point of this is really to getting down to the idea of what self is in a basic concepts. Self is parts feel like they are the solidification of these concepts in the emotions, right? We've got emotions, the biology, we've got the environment, and concepts. We're focusing on that concept piece, just the mind's world. Those are where parts live, and what these are habitual habits and emotions that form patterns in their neural pathways. It's a single pathway that gets reinforced enough that it becomes perpetually firing part. It's going to be, hey, this might be useful, and it becomes a voice in the choir, a part of the peanut gallery, a member on the bus. That is what a part is. We get them from absorbing them from external sources, from our family, from our parents, from our friends, from our school, from our neighborhood, from our religion, from social media, from our nation. We get them, we absorb them, and we also build them ourselves by solving real world experiences. How do I interact with friends? How do I interact with another person? And what do I like with that? How do I figure that out? These predictors, these parts, are the tools in which the self has to interact with the world. That's another key concept here. The self, like the silent conductor, can't and doesn't actually just do what it wants to do. It can't just go and be at the value. We'll get into values again in the next session, but what a value is like connection. I really like connection. I want to have that connected feeling with somebody. And the conductor can't just do connection. It has to point over to these parts over here and say, make jokes, go outside, clean yourself, listen to other people. All of those are just tools, parts that the brain can use to hopefully navigate the real world, to then go towards the direction that you want. So that is essentially what I wanted to go over today. The introduction of self through these concepts, and what parts are. Okay. Great chatting with everybody. I'll talk to you guys next time.